Today we're joined by Aamar Hussain for the AI Boardroom podcast. Aamar is a seasoned technology leader with over 25 years in the industry, spanning roles at Google, Microsoft, and now a stealth mode founder. From virtualization to cloud data and now generative AI, Aamar has consistently stayed ahead of the curve. In this episode, we're going to unpack his career journey, hear how he navigates major tech shifts, and explore the problems he's solving today. Welcome, Aamar. How are you?
Great. Well, thank you so much, Cheryl, for the introduction. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Because for some reason, you always have me early up in the morning where I am.
I know.
Like my day hasn't even started yet, and I'm a little bit subdued in the morning sometimes.
Have you had your coffee?
Not yet, not with coffee yet, but I'm good. I'm good. I think I should be good. I think I'm looking forward to this. We've been talking about this for a few days, and catching up. So yeah, really looking forward to it. And thanks for the introduction.
Yeah, absolutely welcome, and thanks for joining me super early pre-coffee. I don't know how you're managing, but we'll begin first off with your personal journey into tech. We're keen to hear and understand what first drew you into data and AI and what drives your passion for that.
Yeah, so well, it's been a long journey. It feels like 25 plus years that I've been in the industry. The data and the tech side of things, to be honest with you, it's a little bit, it goes back to how I've always approached my career and what I've seen over the years. And I always talk about these three waves and these three shifts that I've experienced in my career so far. And I'm sure it goes back to more waves and more shifts all the way back. We started off with machine learning and with IBM and all of the other big legends of tech industry. Really, the most recent three tech kind of waves that got me interested in data and AI was around the whole shift from virtualization. So if people listening may understand or may remember, possibly depending on how old you are, how old your listeners are, but you remember virtualization and VMware. I vividly remember that era or that time where walking into a meeting, I was working for Accenture at the time, and I was walking into a meeting and my manager at the time, Steve, who's now retired, bless him, and he walked me into a meeting with a senior architect at the time for this account, and the account that we were working on at the time was Thomas Cook. You heard of Thomas Cook, right? The
holidays.
Yeah, so we were walking into this meeting, and the chief architect comes in the meeting with us, and me and my manager accompanied me in there, and he said, "Oh, we're going to talk about virtualization today." I was thinking, what is virtualization? I've never heard of this thing before. And when I looked into it and we spoke further into the meeting, and he said, "Oh, well, basically what you can do is we've got these challenges at the moment with a lot of infrastructure, a lot of hardware. And what we would like to do is we would like to virtualize a lot of infrastructure so that we can make cost efficiencies and savings, and we can be more flexible, and we can increase our utilization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." So that really got me thinking and clicked in my mind thinking, oh, this is like the next thing that's happening. So I need to get on top of this. So then I started doing research into VMware, started, downloaded a version of GSX, it used to be called, before ESX hypervisor came along. And, downloaded that version, started playing about with that, started getting familiar with it, started talking to people, started learning from other people. And I've always had this mindset of actually, really learning about technology, really curious about technology, right from 11-year-old or 11-year-old when I was really young, somebody that just come into the country. And so I had this fascination with virtualization at the time. And I saw that as like an initial wave as to what would happen next or what would come next. So after that meeting, I was left inspired and curious to learn more about this topic. Anyway, fast forward, we did the project. We managed to migrate a number of different infrastructure, projects onto virtualization, which resulted in a huge amount of business savings and flexibility and agility into the organization. And as you know, when you're working for a company like Accenture, one of the things that we used to pride on was how can we deliver value to the end client. And one of the ways that you deliver value is by looking into technologies, looking into innovations to see how can we apply those to client problems and client projects. So we did that project. That was really good. So that was like the first wave that I talk about to people. That was like the initial foundation. Then we had we started looking into cloud as a wave. So cloud computing came along, and this was back in 2009, 2010. And at the time, I was working for a company called CSC. CSC was Computer Sciences Corporation, which is now, I think, merged with a company called HPE. People, again, who've been in the industry for a while will know these names. And so they both merged together, and now it's called DXC, I think, as a company. But anyway, while I was there, I did a master's, part-time master's. So I went back to university to do a postgraduate. And while I was doing that postgraduate, for my final year, for my thesis, I had to do a topic of research. And the topic at the time that was really hype, on top of the Gartner hype cycle, was cloud computing. So that was the second wave, I thought, in terms of, how I've been talking about the second waves. And that was, again, a fundamental shift in how we did computing, how we moved from virtualization. I spoke to some industry veterans at the time when I was doing my thesis. And one of the things I remember vividly, very, very clearly, I remember from a guy, it was an IBM technologist, what they call him, the really, really a researcher from IBM, a guy called Grady Booch. Again, look up this guy, he's fantastic. He came up with UML. I don't know if you remember UML. UML was Unified Modeling Language. So he is a fellow at IBM. And I spoke to him for my research, and he said, we've moved from virtualization to cloud computing. You can call it as virtualization on steroids. So I could see the link between the two. So we spoke about cloud computing, and at the time, I researched into that. I did a thesis on it, and then I pivoted myself into telling myself, or setting myself a challenge to say, I want to be the best in this domain. I want to work for the best. I want to play with the best players in the industry. I want to learn from the best there is, and build my career around it. So again, I pivoted myself in the second wave. And so fast forward from cloud computing, we all know, the benefits and all the kind of transformative powers that something like a cloud computing has, which fundamentally changed how we did technology and how we did IT. It's one of the reasons why we are now talking on Teams, for example, and having this conversation, because of the huge amount of power that this cloud computing platform gives you. And so that was the second shift I found. And then while in that shift, stumbled across Google. The journey to Google was also not as, it wasn't a simple journey. It was difficult. It was challenging. It was daunting. But I'm glad I made that journey. And I luckily somehow got into Google. And that really opened up my mind massively on a global scale. And so I call that second shift. Now, when I got to Google, that's when the third shift comes, which is the data shift, right? The data wave that we talk about. And so that's how I grew. When I was in Google, I realized that Google was really an AI first company. And I realized that in order for you to become an AI first company, you need to be able to understand and build up a foundation on data, on what is data, how do you deal with big data, how do you work, what are the different frameworks out there, like Apache, Hadoop, Apache Beam, Flink, various different ecosystems of Apache. How do you process that big data? What is the benefit of that data? And how can we get that data into a place where we can get insights, patterns, and not only insights and patterns, but also predictions and machine learning readiness and AI readiness with that data. So again, that was a big eye-opener for me, and that's what really inspired me. And we see ourselves in this wave where we are on the AI wave. Throughout the different waves that I've spoken about, one of the big things that I've always said to myself, or I've kept myself as a kind of a principle or a value, is how could I stay ahead of the wave in terms of where we are in technology? And then for anybody listening, I would encourage something similar. Like, think about what the next waves are happening, and think about how can you get on top of those, and how can you stay ahead. And so that's how I've done it, throughout my career.
I feel like a lot of people didn't really notice what was happening, non-techies, until sort of ChatGPT came along, and then that was a sudden inflection point for everybody else. I mean, what do you think is coming next? I mean, you were working on all this stuff, the foundational models at Google years earlier, like you've mentioned. You must have some insight.
Yeah, it's a really good point, actually, you mentioned. So, when the ChatGPT moment came, which like you say, is definitely a inflection point in the industry. One of the things that's happened as a result of this AI wave, or this moment, ChatGPT moment, is it's allowed for non-techies, like you say, to be able to express themselves and communicate to a computer in natural language. That's the biggest value point that I see in this, because what we can do now is anybody who's not done any coding or development before, and take this with a bit of a pinch of salt. We can have a more detailed discussion about what vibe coding means and how to get the best out of it and what have you, because there are things that you have to think about. But as on the whole, the way I see things going is that, previously you needed to have good, solid years of development experience to be able to talk to a computer. And when I say talk to a computer, I mean communicate in a programming language like Java, like C, or even Python, or any of these languages, which are very close to English anyway. But the ChatGPT moment has lowered the barriers for non-techie, for actually democratize access to technology through a natural language medium, which has never been before, never been seen before, never been done before. So I think that's one of the biggest equalizers, I would say. And this is an example of technology being a big equalizer, which I firmly believe in myself. And I think, I'm very passionate about that, because I do feel like technology needs to be a great equalizer. It cannot be for certain sects of society or certain parts of communities. The fact that we had that moment, I think, is a great equalizer. I think that's going to continue. The progression is going to continue. The speed of development in this area is very fast. Every week, a bunch of different models are coming out that are getting smarter and smarter. We're going to start to see increased democratization, to be honest with you. One of the areas where I feel like we still remain to see a lot of work that needs to be done is using the right tool for the right use case or the outcome. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Right now, we have large language models, huge models, foundation models. They're like 80 billion or X amount of billion parameter models, which means that they've been trained on a huge amount of data and they're huge size. So if me and you wanted to start a company, Cheryl, and we wanted to build a foundation model, I think we're going to have to do a lot of work to collect the funds that we need to do to build something like that. It would probably take a very, very long time to have.
Fair enough.
But where I see things going in the future is that somebody like us, if we wanted to start a company and we needed the LLM, we could potentially crystallize, or we can potentially fine-tune, or we can even pick up a lot of more fine-tuned small models that we can leverage for our task. So let's say, for example, if we wanted to build a model that can understand HR language, like we wanted to speak to something in specific terminology, say, or specific industry, rather than us spending millions of dollars on training our own model or even fine-tuning our own model, we could pick up a much smaller model that's been tuned for our use case, for our industry. So I feel like the industry is going that way, and I think more needs to happen from that perspective, and more will happen. I also think that we're moving into a more agentic architecture. You'll hear this term called agents. You'll hear this term called agentic. Yeah. You'll hear all of these buzzwords in the industry right now. Basically, what that really means is that how do we bring in AI? And what I think where we are as an industry right now is we're trying to figure out how can we bring in, or how can we integrate AI into our existing business workflows? How do we bring in the agentic architecture into our existing business workflows? And the way we do that is through these agents, through these distributed architecture of orchestration, of iteration, or using the LLM, using the foundation models to solve a specific task or solve a specific business process. I think that's going to continue. And I think that automation is going to continue. We're going to be staying in that process for a while. And then I think in the long run, you'll see a lot of the most mundane, most common tasks. You'll see a lot more reasoning models, most intelligent models coming up. You'll see various different capabilities like VR coming a lot more common. Yeah, but I think we're going to stay in that phase for a while before we move out and move on to the next thing. So that's just some insights.
I heard that holograms, when people make a call to you, are going to be popping out of your phone next, so you can actually see the hologram of the person you're talking to. Sounds pretty fun.
I was at the airport checking in, and I was checking in some suitcases. Manchester Airport, Terminal 2, they now have machines that actually you have to use. So they've not got any check-in agents doing, like human agents doing
very manual.
They have machines now where you go in and you check in via machine. And I was talking, there was a lady there that was trying to help out with other people, people kind of who are struggling. And I asked her the question, how do you feel about just becoming an assistant rather than somebody that would actually process the check-in process for you? So when you walk into a desk and you have to check in, So I asked her that question, and she said she doesn't mind it actually. She's fine with it, but she's worried, thinking that we used to be inside a check-in on a seat. Now we're standing up next to a machine, and I wonder when the machine will just take over. So the hologram thing that you said, like you could potentially have a hologram that's standing there and that's helping you through the process. So it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned that.
Sorry, you go.
Just very, very quickly, you mentioned the point about doing stuff at Google while this was going on. Yeah, so that's a very good point you mentioned. We were, so for anybody that's into foundation models or is in that kind of space, we in Google, I was looking after, the last area that I was looking after was conversational AI. And in there, we had a product or a platform called Dialogflow. A Dialogflow is a conversational AI platform that allows you to build virtual agents and different omni-channel agents for customer experience and those kind of things. And in there, the model or the learning model, the foundation model we were using was BERT. BERT was bidirectional encoder-decoder architecture, which is some of the earliest language models, large language models that you had back in 2017 and 18, when we were working on these. So there wasn't a huge amount of surprise when ChatGPT came out. However, I do feel like it was a massive moment, because I think the big difference for me with ChatGPT was the simplicity of the interface, just like Google came out.
Yeah.
So yeah, just wanted to jump on that point. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree. It made it super accessible for everyone. And I can imagine that some of this, all these lessons that you've learned from your time in these, big enterprise companies that are attacking AI have helped you in your journey to becoming an entrepreneur and starting the business of your own. I'm keen to explore the mission of the company, what you're up to now, and understand a bit more about it.
Yeah, so let's talk about that journey a little bit more. Let me take you back to probably at Google, actually, to be honest with you. When I got to Google, I felt like I had, from a corporate perspective, from a career perspective, from also a company's perspective, I felt like I reached almost the pinnacle of where I wanted to be for my career. I loved my time over there in Google. It was an amazing company that allowed me opportunities to shift left, right, center, wherever I wanted to play, and showcase my strengths. And I learn more about myself, who I am as an individual. It increased the level of ambition that I had in me. And I was very ambitious, thinking I want to move into the C-level. I want to become a senior industry exec, and I was chasing those type of ambitions over there. And so I had this kind of side to me while I was there. When a lot of people talk about thinking, I'd love to do something for myself, I'd love to do something on my own. I started getting those vibes at the time there, but I was never uncomfortable in there. I felt I was engaged. I felt inspired. I felt like, it was making a big difference. But there was something bigger to be achieved. There was something bigger to go after than just a 9 to 5 role or a job. And don't get me wrong, I have a lot of respect for that. In fact, I may be, you always need, I may be needing to do something like that in the future. God knows what's going to happen, right? So I never knocked that. However, there was something inside of me that felt that I needed to do something bigger than just myself, this 9 to 5, And so I started having these thoughts at the time, but I was still very focused on building my career and getting into an exec role. And I did that with the move from Google to Microsoft. So I went from Microsoft to Google, and in Microsoft, I was a director for data and AI for Azure and UK, and I had a bunch of people that were reporting into me, became so what I wished I had, or what I wanted to get to as a goal or ambition, I achieved that. And then when I got there, I realized that actually, this is not something that I'm learning, or I'm not really making any improvements to myself day by day as I'm working. So I've always had this rule about myself where I said to myself that if I'm not learning, if I'm not making progress, if I'm not getting on and doing things that I've not done before, and I'm learning new skills and experience, I will ask myself the question, am I doing justice to myself by spending time where I am? And I suggest everybody to ask yourself that question if you're in this part of your career, or wherever you are, so you're early, mid, senior, wherever you are, I guess. And I asked myself that question, and the response I got back from myself was to say that, you need to start thinking about the bigger picture in terms of where you want to be and what legacy you want to leave behind and what you want to do with your career. And so I literally had those thoughts. And I made a decision. I made an executive decision for myself and said that I'm going to take a break and find out what to do next. And so I took a break from Microsoft, and in May 23, I decided to leave. And again, I'm leaving some of the biggest names in the industry. I have, there's a lot of money that can keep you going, that you have as a package, etc., etc. But I set myself a bigger goal. I set myself a mission to go after something bigger. And so I did that. And by the way, I didn't know what I wanted to do at the time. I just wanted to know that I need to do something bigger, and I need to do something for myself. I need to have more control over my destiny. I need to have freedom to do other things that I want to do and make the most of my time that I have, and have a good balance with family life and those things as well, which are very important to me. So then, that's when I got into looking into, the way I did it was I made a list of things that I really enjoyed. I made a list of things that I didn't enjoy. And I said to myself, well, what is the mixture? What is the hybrid? What is the kind of things that overlap between these things? And I realized that I wanted to be in the technology space. I've always loved understanding people, understanding objectives, challenges, understanding what they're trying to do, what the mission is, and how best could I work with them to help them resolve or meet those objectives with technology, because that's where a lot of my background is. But I don't want to be labeled as a techie only, and I want to be able to understand people, and business is more important, in how can we deliver value using technology, right? Not the other way around. So with that passion and that understanding, and another area of me which I'm really passionate about is how can I help you become the best of you? How can I add value to you? So putting them together, and the technical skills and the experience that I had, I thought I had over 25 years of industry experience. Why don't I use that to help organizations, to help individuals, to help companies? And so that's when I started building my current company, which is Horizon AI, around ramping up and enabling and training various different global system integrator partners, clients, in them understanding the whole data and AI landscape, especially generative AI. How do you see the world, not through hype, but through actual realities and grounded facts and realities of how to utilize this technology to build systems, to deliver value to your clients? How do you make sure that you understand the challenges in using this technology, and more importantly, how do you work around those challenges? So that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years. So, and it's been an awesome ride, and I've loved every minute of it, and I'm loving every minute of it. I know it's tough. It's not easy. I have some very difficult days sometimes, very busy days, but the fact that I know that I'm making a difference to people's lives, and people actually coming back out and telling me this on LinkedIn, and hearing the feedback in terms of what I'm doing, is the most satisfying thing that I can do, and I'm doing. And so with that, that's actually given me a launch pad or a foundation to do other things, and look at other ventures and opportunities, and which is what I'm doing right now. I know I'm calling it stealth at the moment, but to be honest with you, I'm happy to share the name because we've been stealth for a while, but the platform that I'm building right now is PredictStream. So if you're listening, go into PredictStream. So that's PredictStream, one word, .ai. So I can talk more about that afterwards.
For sure. I mean, what's been challenging about launching all these companies in AI? I mean, it sounds like there's a genuine need. Well, we know there's a genuine need for companies to understand AI and what they're doing. So everything you've been doing sounds like it's going to go down well in the industry, but there must be some other factors involved with building a company in the AI space at the minute, tech, timing, the market, that must have been pretty challenging.
Yeah, it is. It is. It still is. There's the thing is when you're doing this kind of thing, there's never a constant. It's always a upward curve followed by a downward curve, then some constant, and then downward curve, and then upward curve, and what have you. So there's always never a straight line. For example, PredictStream, the platform that I'm working on right now, the mission behind PredictStream really is to help make sense of messy data. So especially event data. So think of e-commerce business on a retail sector. They are dealing with a lot of events, online ordering, API calls. You have an event where somebody talks about a process where, let's just take an example. You have an event, somebody is browsing some products on your website. That's a event, somebody coming onto your website, somebody picking a product, that's another event. Somebody putting that into a basket, that's another event. Somebody adding another product in your basket, that's another event. So there's a number of different events that we have. And what we're trying to do is is actually get to a stage where we can deliver value from that data a lot quicker than the standard way of doing things. So rather than putting all of those events into a data warehouse and then building doing a bunch of different data transformations and data cleaning and feature engineering process, and then doing a machine learning, building a machine learning model, training a model, evaluating a model, validating a model, and then coming out with a model at the end of it, and then doing the predictions. You can see there's a bunch of different stages you have to go through to actually get to a point where you can get a prediction from those events. What we want to do with PredictStream is compress that time to value for that prediction. So we want to be able to pick up an event, have a bunch of events, and then deliver prediction on the back of those events using the various different developments that we've had over the years, or just recently with foundation models and an agentic architecture. So this is the AI native platform that we are building from the ground up that actually uses AI building blocks to deliver value back to the client, whether that be in the speed of predictions, whether that's ETL, extract, transform, load, capabilities using agents, whether that's actually shortcutting your MLOps procedures or processes in kind of having a much more dynamic feature store ingestion process for your features because of the events that are coming in. We're tackling all of those events. We're touching all of those points with PredictStream. So that's what the platform does. That's the mission for the platform in terms of what we're trying to do. And there's, you talked about challenges. Well, challenges, there's challenges all the time. I mean, some of the challenges are technical, where you're actually trying to do something new and you're hitting a brick wall about certain things. Sometimes things are non-technical, where you have certain situations where, as a team, you might need to think about how to scale, how to have the right people in the right places, how to play the right players in the right team on the right.
How do you even find a co-founder, for
How
something
do you,
like?
yeah, and how do you find a co-founder, and also how do you work together as co-founders? Also, these are all, again, building a startup is also a messy business. Like this word messiness comes into it, and it is a messy business. But those who dare, have a chance of winning. And there's a motto that SAS have: dare to win or dare to something. I can't remember it, but yeah.
Well, I saw your post where you talked about being uncomfortably excited. So I guess that's the benefit.
Yeah, it's a really good point that you mentioned there, Cheryl. Yeah, I came across this first in Google. So Sergey Brin and the founders of Google actually spoke about this, and I've kept that in me since that time, where you are uncomfortably excited about something. So it's very uncomfortable to start with, but you're excited of what is on the other side of the milestone or of the target that you get to. So yeah, I apply that to what I'm building at the moment in PredictStream. It is uncomfortable, but I do feel one thing that I've always been part of me is persistency and effort, which is what's in your control. So, as long as you turn up, as long as you're showing up, right, I think the success is always destined for you if you have that mindset and that philosophy to life. So I try to adapt that as much as possible. I know we're not perfect and it's not easy. We all have our own challenges. Always think about the other person's view, think about the other person's shoes and what they've been through and how they're walking in their shoes. But those are the kind of things that drive me.
Values, yeah. I feel like a lot of people are really questioning their own value at the moment with what they're doing. With the layoffs in tech the last few years, as we all know, have been crazy. So I feel like there's this hustle culture in startups as well to get things done really quickly, and people don't really always know exactly what they're doing with AI. I mean, how do you build a culture where people feel safe in building this with you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think I write about this on one of my LinkedIn updates. So anybody who's not following, please, come and follow me on my LinkedIn, and you'll hear all of these snippets over there. I'm sure we'll share that in the notes afterwards, Cheryl. And also, just a quick plug-in as well for PredictStream. So if anybody's actually interested in getting involved with this project, please reach out to us, reach out to myself or any of the other contacts that you see on my LinkedIn. But yeah, the question, what was the question again? Sorry.
The culture, how do you actually build?
Yeah, the culture. Look, that is a massive thing for me. In fact, I think having been in the industry for so long, having been in those roles, I feel like culture you really have to work hard at culture. You really do. And it is difficult. It is difficult. I I try my best always to do what I say with culture. A lot of the time, what can happen is companies and organizations can talk a lot about cultural values, about how they want to be a culture, what they want to do. But I feel like they fall down when it comes to acting and actually implementing that culture. And I think it's a lot easier when it's obviously a small company. It's difficult when it grows up and when you scale out a bigger company. But I can talk about it from the point of what I believe in and what I've
Yeah.
always had a view on is that the people in your company are the most important assets that you're going to have. Whether it's your co-founder, whether it's myself, whether it's an engineer, whether it's lead, head of, VP, whatever title you want to give, I hold the importance of people at all levels of an organization. Okay. And I feel like once you empower and once you treat the people right in a company, you are more likely to have success than less so. So that is my founding principles of any company that I work with or anybody that I work with as a partnership or as a new business or as a co-founder or as a founder of a new company. So
Yeah,
it starts from
because
there. Sorry,
you
go ahead.
mentor people as well, right? You mentor people
Yeah,
on how to shape their careers as well.
absolutely. Yeah. So, I've just last week I was at Manchester Met University where I took part in a future leaders program for school kids who are looking to do A levels. And just yesterday, after I spoke to you, I had a call with one of the young people over there who's actually working a part-time job right now, who I wanted to share some tips with around how he can get into AI. He's got A-level maths and A-level physics right now that he's studying, but he wants to have understanding about what I've done, how I've done things in my career, and how can he pivot himself to have the most success when he wants to get into the industry. So I love doing that stuff. I
Yeah.
love to give back because I've been there myself. And when I was there, I had nobody to guide, not many people to guide, to be honest with you. They were, mentors and coaches I had. But so I love doing that stuff as well.
Yeah, I think it's good. People don't really realize they can reach out to certain people like yourself in the industry, and people are actually genuinely happy to help. On the other side of the coin, you've got people in the industry who, maybe technical, may not be, but they're just trying to stay relevant. They're not at the beginning of their career, they're sort of in the middle of it, and they're wondering, what on earth do I do next? How do I keep my job? How do I stay relevant? What do
Yeah.
you think they should focus on learning or doing right now?
Yeah. So I think, so just on that culture bit, just to finish that quickly off, the culture is very, very important. I believe that's not saying that don't work hard. And I'm not saying, bust your guts to get something done or, have do like 12-hour shifts or sleep at the office or at your desk, No, I think where there are things that have to be accomplished and things that have to be done, you have to give it all and you have to do it. But I feel like that almost will come naturally if you treat the people the way that if you treat the people right, basically, you will naturally see the passion, the spark. You will naturally see them blossom in your company, and ultimately that benefits you as an organization, as an entrepreneur, as a business. So that's what I meant.
Well,
I don't want to give the wrong impression to people to say that I'm just a very softy people type of person. No, 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 no. I have a very high level of expectation of my people, but at the same time I feel like I have to treat people as people, not as numbers, not as uh, commodities out there, right? Which is where I think things start going down. With my promise to people that are listening, I guess, or anybody that's following, is that I would stick to that philosophy and that principle for as long as possible as I could. If I can't do it, then I won't do it. So that's a little bit on the culture side of things. You mentioned about the challenges of people and what's happening right now and how can they remain relevant.
yeah.
So something that I learned while I was at Microsoft actually is one of the philosophies that I really liked over there, which I took away. And again, you can take away good things from everything. So I always encourage people to do that. So always stay curious and have a learning
That makes
mindset. Don't have a know-it-all mindset. Have a learning mindset, right? Read, listen, embrace knowledge, be a sponge of knowledge that you take in things. And as long as you have that mindset of learning it or not knowing it or I think that you will go a long way in the industry. So that's number one tip, is to have a learning mindset, because the industry that we're in, or the stage that we're in the industry, the technology is moving faster than how quick we as humans can keep up with that technology. So the only way we can stay close to it is by having a learning it all mindset. So this is one of the challenges of the technology sector, the tech sector, the industry, is that things are moving way too fast and it's very difficult to keep on top of. So that's number one, make sure you stay curious. And number two is start to use these tools, start getting familiar with them. Right? Use them, get familiar with them. And only by then, by you leveraging, by using these things, you will have natural curiosity into, well, oh yeah, I've done this for my personal thing. How can I do this at work to improve my process, my business process? How can I leverage certain techniques that I use for my own creation of eBay advert to build something in my supply chain or in my product catalog that I'm working with internally? How can we leverage a lot of these tools? So use the technology. Don't be shy of it and feel like put your head in the sun and kind of mentality thinking, yeah, it'll be fine when it gets to it. So people who are worried and scared, what I would say to you is, if you start using the tools to do whatever it is that you're doing, you're on the right path. If you don't, and if you feel like, yeah, I'll get to it when I need to get to it, yeah, I'll do it when somebody asks me to do it. When you control things, you can have a better judgment or decision-making capability to control what is being asked of you to do. So just remember that distinction.
Choose your own path, hey? Look, what keeps you up at night, personally or professionally?
Professionally is more around, the scale up and the build out of what I'm doing at the moment. Doesn't necessarily keep me up, but I do have thoughts of it and things in mind and what have you. But actually, to be honest with you, in some ways it's really good. I like that because I feel like you're always doing, there's something called system one thinking and system two thinking. And a lot of language models now, the reasoning models are starting to do system two thinking. System two thinking is when you have to think about something. System one thinking is when you naturally react to something and you do it straight away on top of your head, right? So there's a book on this as well, slow thinking, fast thinking. There's a book on this I read. So system two thinking is when I'm probably subconsciously sleeping, thinking about certain challenges that are happening, that might be quite, that could hinder the progress of what we're building. And I, as a leader, need to come up with ways of approaching those challenges and the solutions and the workarounds of those challenges. So I take that seriously, and I feel like as a leader, I need to come up with strategies to solve those problems. So those kind of things sometimes keep me, top of my mind. Personally speaking, I think, I take a very serious role in the upbringing of my children, and my family is very important to me. So I have them at my heart and mind at all times. And
stay close to the humans.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, those are things that are personally in my mind. Yeah.
Nice. And quick one, what's your favorite AI tool or product right now other than your own?
My favorite AI product or tool, I feel like there's no one specific tool, to be honest with you. So at the moment I have a tab, I have about 6-7 different tabs open on my screen. And it's a mixture of Gemini, it's a mixture of Claude, it's a mixture of ChatGPT, different products for different use cases. So Sonnet 3.5, Opus for code, Gemini, Flash for code. What I try to do, the way I work with these things, is that I have different streams open for different topics. So what I'm trying to do with AI is I'm trying to get it to have as much memory of whatever it is that I'm trying to do with it, so that I give it a lot of context to come back to me with relevancy. So there's no one specific tool, but I have a hybrid or mixture of tools that I use.
I like it. Build the stack, the AI stack. What about a book, podcast, or thinker that's influenced how you approach work?
Yeah. So there's a book called, from Seth Godin, Linchpin, right? And also Start With Why, Simon Sinek. Okay.
Sounds like a good one.
Essentialism. Those three come to mind. Linchpin, I say Linchpin because Linchpin inspired me to think differently. I think he's a very good storyteller in terms of what's happened before in the Industrial Revolution. What are the lessons we can take from there? But how this thing, well, where we are right now, is completely different. I can make a huge amount of difference to the market as an individual. I have the power to do it because I have the information at my fingertips to do what I need to do. And so I could build a community, I could build a tribe, I could build a business, I could be an entrepreneur, that could have a huge impact, right? I could even be a solo ship as well. I can have myself as a profile where I can do, so I can do anything I need to go and impact the world in a positive way, right? And then the Simon Sinek one, start with why. The big thing there really is, how do you want to live your life? Why do you do what you do? What is your drive? Because I feel like we all need to know our drive. And without it, we don't have an anchor. And when we don't have an anchor, we can go into all different places, lost. And then the essentialism, that one was really important because that teaches you, or this school of thought, that focus on the essentials and everything else is almost noise, which is distracting you. Try to block that out.
Interesting, really
So those are
interesting.
really good.
Yeah, never ending. I guess final couple of questions really. Look, what's the best advice you've ever received and do you still follow it?
The best advice I learned from experience. There's lots of different advice from excellent coaches, mentors, and amazing people. But the one that I take up the most, well, actually, it was from my grandma, actually, to be honest with you. I think that resonates really well. Yeah, it was actually to become a bigger person than yourself, right? So that has stayed with me for a long time, and I think it'll stay with me for a long time. And then I've built a bunch of different values and principles by the experiences that I've had over my life so far. So persistency, effort, hard work, dedication, showing up, no matter how embarrassing it is. And there's been
however many times you fail.
How many times you fail, absolutely. These are things that drive me, and these are the big advice that I feel.
Amazing. I really appreciate that. And look, finally, really, what's next for you and your startups over the next 12 months? And what are you most excited about going forward?
I love what we're doing right now within PredictStream. I am really excited about the product build out right now. We are working towards an MVP. We are having discussions around some partnerships, client engagements, those things. That's really exciting for me. I'm really looking forward to that. I feel like in the next 12 months or so, it'll be a telling time with what happens. Yeah. So yeah, let's see what brings next. But 12 months is a long time. Maybe it's too long to think about.
In this day and age, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I think about it.
Well, people can find you where? LinkedIn, where's the best place to
LinkedIn
and see your journey?
I'm really active on LinkedIn. I should be more active on Twitter. I'm not. But LinkedIn is a place where you'll find me mostly. And
it's like a techie social media Twitter, isn't it?
Yeah, I've tried to limit the social media thing, to be honest with you, Cheryl, because while I do feel there's an enormous amount of value that you can have from social media and these channels, I do feel sometimes you can get drowned in noise and distractions. So I try to limit that to having a single platform where possible. Maybe I might change. I don't know. I'm flexible. It depends.
Maybe we can aggregate them all into one eventually.
Yeah. If that's possible, that'd be good.
Yeah. There you go.
But yeah, LinkedIn, Aamar Hussain on LinkedIn. You'll see me over there. And if anybody needs to get in touch, please get in touch that way. More than happy to connect.
Awesome. Well, look, thank you so much for talking to us today, Aamar, and sharing all of your insights. We appreciate it. And we'll catch up with you again in the coming year. Excellent. Yeah, I would love to do that. I'd love to do it again. Thank you so much for the opportunity to have the discussion, Cheryl. And I really enjoyed the conversation that we've had today. Have a great day. Me too. You too. Bye-bye.